Hello and welcome back to the Boat Shed Shop. In today's video, we're gonna get this old Yanmar engine all dressed up, painted, looking brand new, dare I say spiffy. And yes, we're gonna try to get it started, so stick around for all of that. The last time you were here, we were having some problems with the head and the gap underneath, so we're gonna start there, take a look at how things are going. So good news and bad news here. I did try to check the piston clearances with the solder wire, and they were a little more gap than you're supposed to have, and I didn't really love that. But we went ahead and put the rocker cover on anyways and set all the valve clearances. Now I think I'm gonna probably be taking all that off. As I started to look more into the gap being a little bit bigger than is spec, 27 to 35 thousandths of an inch is the specification for this little gap between the piston and the underside of the head, and we have more like 46. So we're almost 11 thousandths too big. And it doesn't sound like a lot, it's like a hair's width. But apparently when the piston is coming up right to that end and all that turbulence is being created for the combustion, it really does make a difference. And I talked to a couple of machine shops and they said, yeah, you probably don't wanna mess around with that. So as I've done a little bit more research here, it does look like this head gasket is just a little bit thicker than the one that I pulled off, maybe 10 to 11 thousandths of an inch. That would make up the difference. So I've tried to measure the gap a little more carefully, and I've come up with these little feeler gauges that I made on the 3D printer. What else? And so I have different thicknesses in thousandths of an inch that I can slip into the piston, and I can actually guide them in there, and I can feel the thickness better than I can with the solder wire crush. Because I noticed when I was doing the solder wire crushing that it would sort of rock over as it crushed it. It would crush it, but I don't think it crushed it all the way. I think there's a bit of spring that happens there. So this method, I'm liking it a little bit better. I've never seen it before, so hopefully it's useful to all you guys out there. It did, though, confirm that the gap is too large, but I think it's a manageable amount, and I have a new head gasket on the way that is the Yanmar OE, the official head gasket, and I'm really hoping, cross your fingers, that it's the right thickness, and then this will bolt up and have a better chance at running clean combustion, full combustion, proper power, less soot, all those good things. So while we're waiting for that, I do want to keep on moving because I want this engine back in the boat. So I'm going to actually start prepping all the parts here for paint. So we'll put the valve cover on, we'll put the transmission in, we'll get all these parts ready that need paint now. So let's cue up that montage and get that going. Before we get to slapping any paint on here, I do want to install the fuel injection pump. And you'll remember when I took it off, there was a bunch of shims under there, and these are them. These are the original ones. And they're a little beat up, but I think they're probably okay. I do have new ones in case I decide to do that, but these are used to adjust the timing of the fuel pump. And now, in a perfect world, putting it right back the way that it was should give you exact right timing. So if you're removing your pump and you're putting it back on, the same shims should work. This engine's given me lots of reasons to doubt that anything was correct. So we are going to try to check the fuel injection timing using a procedure that I found on the Brand M Parts website, and Brandon is the guy that sent me the compression tester, and not sponsored, but just a really nice guy, very helpful, answers emails very quickly, and so he's given me a procedure to test the fuel injection timing. Let's give it a try. So the first thing we'll do here is just put the original shims back in place and bolt up the original fuel pump. Make sure everything's clean here as we're doing this, and you do need to make sure that you engage the fuel rack on that governor part. And you can just wiggle that back and forth to catch it, and then check the inspection hole to make sure you've got it right. Okay, that looks pretty good. And now to get this to work, we have to reinstall the fuel pump. So let's get that on there. We'll throw the filter in place and then get this plumbed up, get some fuel to this thing. Well, we ran out of room here trying to get the fuel injector filter installed. So I've actually had to raise up the motor on the stand. So I flipped the stand over. We had to get the crane in here and move it around. But we're clear now, so we'll finish installing the rest of that. We have our fuel pump timing rig now fully installed, and I've been cranking it over a bit. I added a bit of oil to the engine just because I wanted to make sure that as we're cranking it over, you know, we're starting to lube those parts up. Hopefully that pump, the oil pump, is priming. And now I can already see that there's fuel up at all three injectors, and number one already has a little bit coming through. So I've made a little nipple that goes into the fuel injection pump there and screws down. That's holding the fuel back. And so I'm able to turn the crank now and see the fuel rising. And so as we have timed up to top dead center on cylinder number one, which we're testing right now, we are seeing that the fuel is actually starting to move at the pretty much exact right time. I marked it and it's just maybe the slightest bit late. And I think that if we add the adhesive to glue in the shims, it might make it a little bit too late. So I might just try and knock off a tiny bit of the thickness when I put the shims back in and adhesive to hold all this together. But we'll show you one here as we crank it over, and then you can see the exact timing. Right there. I did initially forget to crank the throttle all the way back. That's an important step in the procedure manual. So here you see we've got that pulled all the way back. Nice to have something fall in the right direction this time, and the timing is actually set pretty well with the shims that were already set up. So unfortunately now we need to break the whole fuel injection system back apart so that we can get the engine painted. But we'll get the shims in, check it one more time, and then move on to paint. Awesome. Let's take a second to thank some of the new Patreon and YouTube members that help keep this channel floating along. Now, if you're interested in some extra updates and ad-free videos, you can check out the Patreon link below or hit that join button. Now, the folks whose names are appearing on the screen go the extra mile to keep this channel working, and I couldn't do it without you. Thank you all so much. Now, back to the video. We are going to now take a couple of steps back in order to go forward. We're going to take this head back off because the thickness of the head gasket is a little bit more than I would like, and it's leading to the distance between the pistons and the cylinder head being out of specification for the manual. Now, some people in the comments, I'm sure, are ready and able to comment on that and let us know that, you know, that's a great idea or it doesn't really matter. I'm sure there's opinions on both sides. And what I have talked to some machinists and some engine experts, they're sort of saying, it is published for a reason. Let's try and get you as close as you can. We didn't have to do any machining on this block. That's when a gasket that is a little bit thicker would be just an excellent thing to have. So there's definitely a case for a thicker aftermarket gasket, but we are going to put in the original gasket, go back to specification, hopefully drop the head a little bit lower, get those values right where they need to be. Anyway, let's get to work. We'll swap this over. We'll take it all off as one big piece. We'll try and speed this up for you. Here we go. And that ought to do it. So now with the head gasket replaced back in, we were very careful to scrape off the old one and redress it with a bit of new copper spray. I think we're in good shape here now. And the gaps inside that were 46, 45 are now measuring closer to 33 thousandths of an inch. And the spec being, I think, 29 to 35 or 27 to 35, we're in that window now. So feeling much better. I'm just a happy guy to be on the spec as an engineer. Maybe I overthink things a bit. And this might be one of those cases, and you can let me know in the comments what you think, but we're gonna keep on moving here, get this thing ready for paint. As we're getting this engine ready, I have to kind of resist my perfectionist urges. I wanna, paint everything one piece at a time, make sure it's all coated exactly right, and then put it all together. And it's just gonna take way too long to do something like that. Now, putting it all together and then painting it in one piece is one way to go, but a lot of these parts have rusted over the years. I think that's because they didn't get a good coating on them. So I want to do a kind of a hybrid approach where I paint a few things off the engine and then I'll do a final assembly with the primer on and then do the final coat of paint once it's all put together. And hopefully that is gonna give us a good result in the end. So we'll paint parts like this separately, hanging them here in the shop, and then once they have dried up enough to put the final assembly together, we'll do that and then hit that engine one time at the end. For the primer coat, we're going to be using an AkzoNobel epoxy primer. It's going to bond well to the aluminum and the steel and some of the existing paint. It'll give us a good substrate for the final coating, and we're going to use the Allcraft 3000 for that, and that stuff is really tough and isn't typically an engine paint per se, but in most of the areas, except where it gets very hot, it will be fine. It might discolor slightly. For now, let's get started on mixing up that primer and get some of those small parts coated. With all of these parts now covered in a layer of primer, we can move on and start putting them back on the engine one at a time, and then we'll spray the engine here before we go too far though. So I want to start by putting the pre-combustion chambers back together, throw these injectors on top, bolt everything down. These are all seated now, so the head is all sealed up. Now we can start getting ready to paint that. We're going to throw another coat of primer on the entire engine now, and then tomorrow morning we'll come back with the top coat. We'll finish putting everything back together and paint it. That'll be nice. And then we're gonna see if this thing starts. Let's hope so. This first round of primer looks really good, and we've been able to get in all the engine parts and areas that are otherwise hard to cover. When you put like the starter back in, for example, then you can't really get back in here. So I'm happy that we did it this way. Let's now get the rest of it prepped, put back together. One maybe final coat, a dusting of the primer over everything else, and then we'll get the top coat on. Fuel system is now back together, and I did miss a few spots, but overall pretty good, and I think I'll be able to get it on this second go round here. So let's hit one more coat of primer on this, then we'll get ready for top coat. That primer has covered really well, and it's going to leave a great substrate now for applying some top coat to that. For that, we are going to use some All-Craft 3000. I have some graphite gray and some signal white. Maybe a little too dark and maybe a little bit too light, but you will see the oil leaks if there are any with this one. But this is a product that is a high gloss, super durable polyurethane. It's going to be resistant to oil and fuel, pretty much anything that this engine could ever see. So hopefully it's going to leave a very long-lasting finish for us. So maybe we'll mix up a custom tint, maybe lighter gray than this, and then we'll get it applied to the engine. Let's get going. That paint has laid down really nicely. This thing is like full gloss. It looks like it's still dripping wet, but it's actually been drying for over 3 days now. I've been away for a friend's wedding, a friend from elementary school, if you can believe that. And so it's very nice to see this all ready to go. We have a few things to dress up. We've got to put like the crank pulley on, all the hoses and stuff, so we'll get all of it dressed up. We'll get that going now. And then I want to get this thing started today. Let's hope that works out. Looks like we're all ready to go here. We have the fuel in, I've primed it, I've gotten all the bubbles out to the pumps, but all these lines are completely empty. So it might take a little while to pump the fuel through. Now also the oil galleries are all empty and I need that oil pump to pick up and restore the oil pressure. So we're gonna get the system here rigged up. We're just gonna run it over with the decompression levers open for a bit, see if we can get fuel to come out, and if we can get that oil alarm to go out. The oil pressure is what ruined the last engine. Let's make sure it's working on this one. All right, well, it seems like I've been trying to bleed this fuel forever and ever, but I think we're finally ready to start this engine. Getting the fuel all the way up from the fuel pump down the lines to the injectors just took a long time, and I was running a fan here because I didn't want to overheat the new starter. I had to hold the fuel rail back a bit, so like we were trying to inject more fuel. I'm thinking that might speed things up a little bit there. During the course of all of this, wouldn't you know it, the low pressure switch, the Yanmar part, seems to have failed, which is something that's happened to me twice now. And I have this backup gauge that is telling me that we have oil pressure, so that's good. But the warning system built into the Yanmar part is going to need to get replaced, I think. I've been troubleshooting that a little bit. But hey, enough about that. Let's push this thing outside so we don't blow a bunch of smoke in here. See if we can get this thing to run. Okay, it's the moment of truth. Let's hope it works. I've been running this battery for a long time now, and it might have drained it, so hopefully we can fire it up. Let's see. A little bit of smoke there. I won't lie, for a minute there I didn't think it was gonna go. Seemed to be having some problems. Looks like we might have it now. We've got all the water hooked back up. I don't want to run it for too long here because I don't have the right means to break it in. But let's get it going, make sure there's no leaks, and then we'll set it up to take to the boat. All right. Well, I gotta be honest, I'm feeling pretty happy that the engine is running and getting back into shape. It looks good and hopefully will last a really long time. We have a little bit of white smoke there, but that's probably normal since the rings haven't bedded in yet. So we'll give it a little bit of time to make sure once we get some load on that everything is just right. So with all that, I think this is the great time to ask you to hit the like button for me. It really does help out with the channel and the almighty algorithm, so thank you so much for that. If you're new to the channel watching this video and you want to get to the beginning of the Yanmar rebuild and see all of the journey that we went through there, and it was quite a journey, I'll put a playlist for you right up here. And if you are interested in learning more about Antidote, the boat that we are rebuilding here on the driveway, that's the main thing that this channel is supposed to be about, well, you can check out this playlist up here as well. Big thanks again to all the people that helped out with this video, AkzoNobel for the coatings, Bolt Depot for all of the fasteners, of course Parts for Engines for supplying a lot of those parts to go back into the engine. I don't think I'm forgetting anybody there. Well, as a matter of fact, I almost did forget to mention Ellebogen Engine Mounts, and these are quickly gaining a reputation in the industry for being really high quality mounts at a great price. Gosh, that sounds really salesy, but it's true, and I met a bunch of people at the Annapolis Boat Show that felt the same way, and Aitor actually did a really amazing display there. He's trying to break these things. It was quite something. He actually won an award from the show. We'll be doing some follow-up videos for those as we finish the installation, but if you're looking for new mounts for your engine, replace those old rusty, crusty ones, you can get a set of these for a great price, and if you use the code LFS10, you can save 10%. And it also helps the channel out a bit too, so win-win. Well, now I need to get going so I can put the engine back on that boat, so we'll see you next time. Okay, moment of truth, let's see if it goes. Gosh, this is nerve-wracking. So this feels like a great time to ask you to hit that like button if you haven't